Incredible.
Hi. Testing. Is that loud? No? Okay. All right. I'm naturally really loud. Great.
All right, everybody. People are going to be, that's loud. Everyone's going to be trailing in a little bit, but we're going to go ahead and start it up. This is our last session of Flourish, so super excited. Make sure you review all the people, curate.co/sessions, including this one. But I'm going to go ahead and introduce Jody. She is local to us. We love working with her. She's an incredible wedding and event professional. She does a lot of great stuff. She's going to talk a little bit more, but she's going to be really challenging us to all flourish. And with that being said, I'm going to hand it over to Jody, and we'll go from there.
Great. Thanks, Ben. Hey. Okay, you guys have been bombarded with all sorts of information today, so hopefully my goal for this presentation is so you can kind of just sit back, relax, maybe have some higher level thinking. So like Ben said, my name is Jody Cox. I'm the owner and principal designer at The Fair to Remember, which is a floral design and rental company here in St. Louis. And I'm so thrilled to be here with you guys because your energy has been so energizing. It's been so invigorating. And at the end of a busy fall season and a busy wedding season, we could all use a little energy. And when I was asked to provide the closing speech for the conference, I was excited and a little bit overwhelmed because, to be totally honest, I love talking about business. I'm such a nerd because I have so many thoughts and ideas. I love taking, little business, marketing, strategy, planning, and dissecting that and brainstorming about ways that you can implement it into your business. Nothing really gets me more jazzed than talking about that, which is super dumb. But you've already kind of gotten all that today. My fellow speakers have given you some incredible tips and advice on some of those nitty-gritty areas and ideas and practices that you can implement into your business immediately. So my goal today is to be a little bit more conceptual. I'm a big picture kind of person in life and in my design approach and ultimately in business. And so I'm always kind of thinking about 5 steps out. So I want to take a step away from the micro about what you learned today and challenge you to focus on that larger picture, your overall brand, so that when you leave here, you can take all those tactile things that you learned and kind of figure out how you should implement them into your current system, how they can best work, and how you can sort of adapt them. Just kind of an umbrella of strategy, if you will. Something to kind of chew on. And because I'm a results-oriented person, my hope is also to leave you with a couple of tangible steps that came from my experience that you can adapt to your business and maybe just use to evaluate your current status and expand upon. So these steps are really what took my business from being one-dimensional to a multi-revenue stream business with over $650,000 in annual gross sales. And they say that entrepreneurs are the only people that will give up working, that will work 80 hours a week to give up or to avoid working 40. And I don't know about you, but I'm like a prime example of that. So my point is, let's make those 80 hours count. So first, I want to talk a little bit about what should drive your business. And I'm gonna jump in back and forth a little bit, so that's why we're not in presentation mode, but mission, vision, identity. It's critical when building a strong business. I know that that's probably not the first time you've heard that. It's business 101. It's not rocket science, but time and time again, I see young business owners making big decisions that affect their business without having their brand and their mission guide those decisions and also be reinforced by those decisions. Without a solid foundation of who you are and what you're trying to achieve, you're just bound to limit your potential and you could possibly fail in what you're doing. My vision from the beginning has always been for my company comprehensive design, focusing on the end result, the big picture. And florals were really just one piece of that. And that process is really uniquely tied to my particular skill set, which I'll talk a little bit about later, and that drives every decision that I make. It sounds like a simple notion, like we should all know what you're good at and what you should be, what your business should be. But more often than not, I see folks jumping in without doing that sort of necessary soul searching And it's pretty tough in today's sort of Instagram world to not be comparing yourself to the person down the street. And competition is great. It fuels you. It can help push you and drive you. But if you're, comparing yourself to whatever business is doing this and you don't feel like you're doing that, it's just unproductive. So you've got to have that foundation in your business. Otherwise, you sort of muddy the waters. And it really is important because not only to reinforce your brand, but to attract and motivate talent, to provide consistent messaging to potential clients, and to set expectations of what others can expect from your business. And ultimately, to get you in a place where you can pivot and adapt so that you can position yourself to capitalize on new growth opportunities without doing harm to your brand and vision. So delivering on your brand to me is really paramount. But what happens when you don't deliver? Has anybody in here ever really failed at an event, didn't execute it? Nobody wants to admit that? One. I definitely have. So in the 1,200 events that we've done, I've only let this happen one time. And that's about all you need to have that happen, is just once. In the first year I was in business, we did this big wedding in Indiana, and it was 2-hour drive there, and you lost an hour going over. So it was 3 hours. And we were obviously this deer in the headlights. Yeah. You already know where this is going. But it was kind of our first where we were doing full design approach. We were doing the linens, we were helping planning, we were doing the tent, all those different things. And everything was great. Bride was great. We had, just a great rapport. And just a lot of different things sort of went wrong. Outdoor wedding, which is already a first red flag. Second red flag, on their parents' property. And if you've ever done an outdoor wedding on someone's property, you can just triple your setup time, because the mom's always coming out how's everything going? And then you go spend 30 minutes having that FaceTime with them. So that was, already kind of setting the tone for it. And I'm someone that really never wants to wait on the day of to do something. So we even came out the day before to kind of do some of that foundation decor. And this experience probably brought that full force for me. I have a couple employees in here, and they know we never do anything at the last minute. But we had a worker bail on us earlier that week, another worker bail on us that morning, and so my intern and I set off to Indiana to do this wedding, and the things that we had to do, I just cringe at now thinking about how ill-equipped we were to execute that, just with the labor that we had. I hadn't prepped our candelabras. I designed a full hand-tied cascade bouquet in this woman's kitchen. It's why didn't I do that before? So all these things, all these pieces that really just didn't set us up for success. And ultimately it showed. And we didn't finish in a hanging installation we were supposed to do. And we just didn't do it. It just wasn't enough time. So I left that knowing I just wasn't prepared to deliver on the kind of experience that I wanted my brand to reflect. And I run a pretty tight ship at our shop, and because of lack of experience and resources and poor planning, I hadn't set our team up for success. And at that point, you can really only face the music. You just have to learn from it, be better because of it, and just kind of make sure you're minimizing that risk. And it's my hope to illustrate today to keep you some from those oh shit moments and focus your energy on practical steps to build a sustainable business by investing in the right areas and maximizing resources so that you can continue to grow each year and meet your goals successfully. Investing in foundational pieces and systems to support the goals of brands are critical. And in my experience, we have a couple of these that I'm going to touch on. The first is people and talent. So it's easily one of, we were just talking about this in our session, most challenging and costliest areas. And when you first take the leap to hire someone, it's hard not to see that money just going right out of your pocket, because you're taking the chance that that person's going to help you drive revenue and grow your business. And it's important to make that decision less of a risk. With any hire, you have to first evaluate what you bring to the table that nobody else does. I consider myself a pretty darn good designer, but those skills can be taught to someone else that has talent and a little patience. I don't have a whole lot of patience, but when it comes to developing talent, that time will always pay off for your business with the right hire. And for me personally, I'm best equipped to sit down with a client, listen to their inspiration, get inside their headspace, and translate their vision on the spot in our consultation. And I'm also good at budgeting and maximizing. So I end up doing the proposals. That's really where my skill set lies. And in turn, I bring the money in because of that. And so the sort of exercise I use as I was starting to hire, and especially early on in your business, honing in on where and how the money comes in is the best way to define what your next hire is going to be. So I always use this little practice, like when I hire a person or I hire a position, what can this person take off my plate or do that will allow me to focus on bringing more money in, meeting with more clients, getting proposals out faster, sealing the deal quicker. Later, when you get more employees, you can start leveraging roles and payroll to maximize output and expenses. But when you're first starting out, that's a good exercise to use. But maybe you're not the one that's really good at sitting down with clients. Maybe you can crank out 2 weddings in a fraction of the time anybody else can, and you don't have time to do proposals or sit down or just do email. Then maybe you need a virtual assistant, maybe you need a salesperson, somebody to do face-to-face. So it's really trying to figure out what you bring to the table and how you can maximize that. And in the past couple of years, we've been hiring and firing and kind of trying to redefine what we need to do to maximize our output. And I feel like our team is like, we're in good shape right now. The next is systems and technical efficiency. It's kind of boring, but it really is important. And it goes in line with professionalizing your business so that it runs more seamless and it's productive. We employ, I'm just going to go over a couple of these. Obviously, we employ Curate as one of our technical efficiencies. We invested in this when Ryan and Rachel first started out as their Kickstarter, and I was like, yeah, I'll help a Kickstarter, no big deal. And I was like, the idea's great, but I don't have time to put all my stuff in this system. And Ryan was like, hey, you need any help? Come on. And then finally, I think we started doing it. And it has been, it's a game changer. I mean, the functionality is so ingrained in our process from start to finish that we wouldn't be able to do without it. The next is really basic. This is a scheduling system that we set up. It's by acuity, and we execute about 230 to 250 events and rentals a year. So we schedule a lot of appointments between rental pop-ins, vendor meetings, all that kind of stuff. And so this allows us to set up these different consultations that we just pop in their information. You can have other people schedule these, but like we don't let brides do that themselves. Otherwise they'd be all trying to meet at 6 p.m. on Friday night. And so what I love about this is that it cuts down on all of our email communication, and I really find that it sets expectations with your clients and communicates to them so that they already send about 3 email reminders to them, just like, this is what you should be prepared for. Clean up your Pinterest board, bring in swatches, whatever you want to tell them. And I really find that they come more prepared to that meeting so that we can just get the ball rolling and move on and be more productive with our time. And it also cuts down on no-shows because of those email reminders. So that's huge. The next part is your website. And I realize that sounds like, duh, you need a good website, you need to educate people. But our website really focuses not only as a point of education for potential clients, it's also a tool to maximize our time and efficiencies. Because we also offer rental options, we have all of our rentals here, and my former rental manager who left us and then came back, she knows that at the beginning we had all of our information up here, and then we would have a client go, hey, fill out my contact form, I want gold lanterns. And then you'd go, okay, what kind of gold lanterns? We have 5. What size do you want? What are they for? And then you'd have all this email back and forth to try to get to the point. So we developed this wish list platform where they can just go in, search by color or search by variety. They can pop in what they want. It gives you all the things here. We can add photos of how we've used this item. They add it to the wish list. They go through just like any other online retailer. It sends it to my logistics assistant who puts the proposal together, and it shoots them out. So it really has cut down on cost that way and just time, which has been great. So whatever you choose to sort of implement, just make sure that you can rely on these systems to run it so that you can focus, you can cut down on all that time and focus on higher level stuff. Get back to our whole thing here. And also, which I'll talk a little bit about later, but we also filter out our clients through this too. So our contact form is a questionnaire that we fill out that we end up really sort of vetting them through the process. So next is processes and procedures. What do you do to ensure that your event is seamless? In so many aspects of the event industry, most of the work has to be done before the day of, right? You have to be, back in my Indiana story, like, why didn't I have that bouquet made ahead of time, or those candelabras de-waxed? Like, what was I thinking? I mean, I know the answer to that. I thought I had all this help that I didn't have, and didn't have resources, and whatever. The list goes on. But that was really ultimately poor planning and lack of execution, and that's something that really has stuck with me. The event day can produce so many obstacles, and it can really derail your timeline. So I'm really proud to say that we don't run into those issues anymore because our systems are really fine-tuned. And earlier I mentioned I sort of run a tight ship. That doesn't really mean I'm rigid or strict, although I guess maybe sometimes I can be. But it really means that we focus on efficiencies and routines and consistent processes each week to streamline our tasks so everyone is on the same page as we position ourselves to be successful that weekend. When you're a team of one, you just have to rely on yourself, right? Like, I got time to do this. I know how long it takes me to do that. When you start building your team and you have multiple hands touching the same thing, you have to over communicate. And communication is so key so that you don't have things that slip through the cracks. Like, I thought somebody was gonna de-wax those, and then you show up on site and your team's like, these aren't even ready to go. So we have to be really mindful about that. And in my business, we obviously do rentals, so there's a ton of prepping involved. And we have about six full-time people on staff, and then contractors, freelancers, and sort of hourly support staff. But on any given weekend, we can have 3 to 4 full-blown weddings where we're doing the ceremony setup, reception, bridal flowers, the whole thing. And we maybe also have 5 to 15 rentals going out the door too. So our processes really kind of have to be streamlined. And this is, I don't know if anybody can really take away anything from this, but this is our process, and this is how we sort of try to clean this up. So about 2 to 3 months out, we send in this general check-in, which hopefully catches them before they start panicking, where they haven't heard from you and they're like, the knot's telling me my wedding's in 80 days. Are we still on? They get nervous right around that 2 month, 3 month out time. So this is just like, hey, don't worry, hope you're excited. We're excited, you're gonna be hearing from us soon. We got you. And then 5 weeks out, we send the email that says, hey, in a week, you're gonna need your final additions to us. What's your photography timeline? What's the logistics? Where do you want bouquets delivered? And we set up, we have templates in Outlook that are already sort of pre-populated, so we can just pop in that information so that we're getting consistent information back, so we're not handwriting those emails every single time. And then obviously once you sort of get into your prep schedule, 4 weeks out, we order our flowers. 3 weeks out, we're using Curate to print all of our recipes, print all of our rental pull sheets. We post them up on different shelves, and then my rental person comes in and she identifies all the tasks, like these need to be steamed, these the oasis needs to be soaked here, all those things that have to happen before you can start on the designing. And then and it's really critical that we do all of that, then we do all the prep 2 weeks out. So that way we're a week ahead. And what is really important for us to be a week ahead of the wedding is it allows us to maybe take on a last minute order or a last minute rental or floral order. Whereas if we were working so hard that week to get the weekend's events ready, my labor force would be capped because they have to prioritize that wedding, right? It's important, it's on Saturday. But if it's a week ahead, it's like, all right, well, we can take this little corporate event really quickly because we've got a little bit of wiggle room there. And it also gives us wiggle room if it's like, okay, accent decor didn't come in, so it's coming in at the last minute, so we gotta prep these, and just gives you a little bit of wiggle room there. And then the week of, Our studio manager processes the florals, develops the design schedules, what's the goal for each day, who's gonna do what, all of that good stuff. And then we develop our day of materials. And I give a book, I don't know, it's down here, but it's just like a normal thing you get from Office Max. It's just a binder, and every day of folder has the same information in it. It's got our day of timeline, which we produce, that has what vehicles people are taking, who's going to be on setup and strike, drive times between each venue so that you know when to leave and do all that kind of stuff. Pieces of the bride's information as well, or client's information. And then we have our initial contact forms in there just to give a little context. And then I always print out our curate recipes. And then sometimes I'll pull out big inspiration, like, so if we have 3 centerpieces and they're all like candle groupings with greenery around the base. Who's done that this year? Has anybody done that? That's just like, I figure we have. So, we might have 3 of those styles of centerpieces and they all have different votives. So instead of looking at a small picture, I'll blow it up basically and say, okay, centerpiece A, 3 of these hurricanes, 3 of these votives, go. And then the rental packing list, and then also a note sheet for anybody that's striking that wedding to say, here's where we stored the boxes, this is the client stuff, don't take it, so on and so forth. And what I love about that is I don't always go on setup days, but when I do and I lead a team, my girls grab that folder and they just immediately go into it because they know exactly what to expect. And I don't have to go, okay, everybody, here's what we're doing, this is what we're gonna go. They just dive right in. So it's really sort of key. And again, it just goes back to allowing time to focus on higher level stuff. I'm the one that has to focus on the business. So I need to pull myself out of that and free up time to focus on the health of my business. The next one here, what's going on here? All right. Oh, yes, so the next one here is education. This really to me doesn't mean formal education, doesn't mean being certified or having a master's in business or attending $4,000 floral workshops. Those are all great, but what I'm talking about is more internal, higher level thinking, continuing to invest in evaluating your strengths and education and analyzing your role and your unique contribution to your business. So really just kind of continuing to push yourself. And you're already here, which is like half the battle. So, and then that brings me really to my next segment, which is new revenue streams. We all talked about, some key areas to invest in, but how do you take those resources that you built and cultivated and capitalize them and drive new growth? So to me, it's really about leveraging that. So we all have to, you've heard that phrase, you have to spend money to make money. I spend a lot of money. I feel like it only goes out the door. I don't know if anybody else feels like that. But it sounds great unless you don't have any money to spend. But as you get a little more experience in revenue, you find out that it's really about prioritizing that spending that's critical to growth. Whether your first investment is software or talent or a new cooler or something like that, you've got to be able to illustrate how one step leads to another, giving you points in the process to identify the likelihood that that investment will allow you to achieve the next goal. You can't capitalize on a market without having the resources to support it. It's kind of like the chicken and the egg. It's like, I want more business, but I need more help, but I can't have more help until I have more business because I need more money. And you're like, how do I do that? You really have to kind of take it chunk by chunk. I don't know about anybody else, but I end up spending all my paycheck on my business, getting the latest resources. There isn't a year where I haven't stretched. I'm always stretching. It's like, can't you just relax for a second? And to a conservative person, they're probably like, you don't really probably need to do that every single year. But that's how I am able to sort of push and drive growth every year. When I first started out, I was I was really robbing Peter to pay Paul. I mean, I used deposits from future weddings to pay for inventory that I needed coming up for weddings. And at that time in my business, I was a one-man band, and I wasn't able to invest in employees, so I did everything myself. I can't even tell you the amount of all-nighters I pulled. I mean, it's like insane. And at that time, I really prioritized in products. And so I worked full-time and employed a lot of interns and taught people with no experience And I realize that not everybody here is in the game of rentals, but in my market, that's where I was able to see the most immediate potential, because my market didn't really have any of that. So because my brand was built on comprehensive design, I chose to invest in those pieces that would sort of turn over. And this gave me full design control and able to kind of offer this sort of one-stop shop. So your investment strategy is going to look a lot different than mine, and it should. It should be really tightly aligned with your business model, your skill set, your resources, and where you want to take your business. It's critical to identify what you can invest in today that will get your business to the next step. You've got to ask yourself, what is my next step? What do I want? What do I need to do that? Do you want to do more weddings? What do you need in order to do more weddings? Do you need a truck? Do you need an employee? Do you need an assistant to crank out boutonnieres all day long so that on Fridays you can crank out another higher level wedding? Maybe you want to do fewer weddings, so you invest in networking with luxury planners or venues or something like that. Unfortunately, most of us don't have this giant pile of cash that you can invest in everything right away. So you've got to take it piece by piece, prioritizing what you can do now in order to produce new increased revenue streams. And not all investments are going to work out. I've had a couple that's like, oh man, I think I'm still paying off some of those things. But if you're nimble and you plan well, you can mitigate risks and adjust on the fly. And that's why it's so important, because we don't really have the luxury of making bad investments when you're a small business owner, right? You have to be really mindful of that, because one bad investment can sink you. In my place in business, I've invested slightly over time. So now, this is probably for those that have already been kind of in business, they're seeing probably the same things, is that now I'm in sort of this beautiful place where I can start leveraging those resources. That revenue has compounded on itself, which has allowed me to have a little bit more to play with. It's less dire, right? Now I can say, okay, let me free up payroll, and I'm going to move this person over here, and then we're going to do that. One thing that we've recently invested in that kind of goes in line with this are Lucid candles. I don't know if anybody has used Lucid candles. They're amazing, right? Amen. They are so amazing. Those taper, the grommets on the taper are like, they're mind-blowing. So because we do rentals also, candles that go out the door. I don't know about you guys, but it's like we just burn candles literally all day long. And so we decided, I was like, all right, I'm gonna bite the bullet. It's like $5,000. I'm gonna finally do that, because we were spending so much time de-waxing cylinder bases. Oh my God, right? It's like the worst. It's the worst. And I don't care how many tricks you have, it's still a pain in the ass, right? It doesn't even matter. And so I didn't have to really do research on like, I didn't have to calculate how much labor we were using on that. I knew it was just an extraordinary amount. And so I was like, okay, we're gonna do this, because now what I can do is I'm finally gonna, invest in these candles. And so I can use my $20 an hour employee to do higher level stuff, as opposed to getting wax out of there, and take this $10 employee and say, all right, well, I'm just gonna, Windex these really quickly, or just wait to do it on site, because I already have 5 people working that I know can quickly do that. So once you kind of have an opportunity to do that, you can really sort of leverage those resources and maximize the money, basically. So it really sort of ties back into maximizing those efficiencies. And to me, that's really what takes your business from year 1 to year 10. So the next one really is developing a strategy for growth. I don't know how everybody's, we were talking earlier about everybody's sort of start of their business stories, which I love hearing how people start. When I was 24, I quit my job with 20 grand in debt. And I started 2 businesses. My background's in marketing and promotions, and so I had a business that focused on strategic marketing events, right, product launches, different things like that. And we had the first couple events, and I made like 10 grand, and I was like, oh, I'm gonna buy this sports car, I'm gonna pay this debt off, I'm gonna do all these things. And I had a couple more events in front of me, like, okay, man, I'm like rolling in it. And then the market crashed. And people that were doing these sort of extra marketing things, businesses, that stopped. And I had an affair member on the side, and we were really offering planning. And it was still, 10 years ago, that was still a luxury item. Still kind of is a little bit today in people's minds. And so I shifted focus a little bit because, quite frankly, I had to pay my bills. We were poor at that time, like every good 24-year-old is. And I didn't really dream of being a wedding planner. I'm not overly romantic. But somehow in this sort of market uncertainty, I realized that my potential clients were looking for so much more than planning help. They wanted design. They were desperate for design help. This was the days before Pinterest. I don't know how many people in here are the days before Pinterest, but we used to have books of magazine clippings that we would just go through, and it was really hard for people that aren't visual to be able to put that stuff together themselves. And so I kind of quickly found out that people were kind of needing that. So I sort of switched gears, dictated by my market, and I bought a sample of kind of everything that I thought was marketable at that time, did a couple bridal expos, got a little retail shop, and we did about 35 weddings the first year. And florals really were kind of a natural next step for me, which was pretty close after that. I just had a client that was like, hey, can you do my flowers? And I was like, yeah, I definitely can. I mean, I had no formal training. I was like, sure, I can do that. And I remember a family friend of my dad's who owned a floral shop down the street said, she does know it's just not putting flowers together, right? I was like, yes, of course it is. It's so much more than that. But I wasn't scared of a challenge. I'm by nature a risk taker. A calculated one, but still a risk taker. But I really don't believe in the fake it till you make it. I do believe in knowing yourself and your abilities and meeting challenges head on, and with the proper work, being able to succeed. So what I would want everybody here today, wherever you are in your business, is to not pass on an opportunity that could take your business to the next level because you feel inept at that moment or you feel the job's too big. Take a leap, invest in the right areas so that you can succeed. And the need in my market, I designed my business around that. The next year we did 50 weddings, then we did 75, then we did 100, and now we do 250. And developing my business around that comprehensive approach, that one-stop shop, allowed me to have multiple revenue streams. So I had rental, decor, design, planning, florals, and it really only just supported my brand and mission. It's got to support your brand and mission at the end of the day to make sense. And it doesn't do any good to deviate from your core service if you're not reinforcing who you are. Moments like this, I think, really are defining in your business. And it really, my business has continued to develop and change. I was in Central Illinois then, and then I moved down to St. Louis, and I gave up planning because we already had wedding planners here, and it was like the easiest service I could have given up. I'm so glad to give it up. And then we really were able to kind of focus on our rentals and sort of growing that. And we're changing again to a new market that I was currently turning away, which is this low budget bride that I can't afford to spend 2 hours in a consultation with. So we developed recently the flower cart, which are pre-designed packages that have everything that you need to have your wedding. It has bouquets, bridesmaids, whatever, all the things, 15 centerpieces, and this is like our online checkout. They just pop it in their cart and then it's designed for pickup. So we, through Curate, designed all of those recipes so that we could properly quote the stem count and make sure that we were maximizing profits. And this now I can crank that template out in a hot second, which is really great. So you have to kind of just like keep investing in new ideas and adapting when your market changes. If you don't adapt to your market, then you're just gonna become irrelevant. No, I mean, you just have to do it. All right, I keep going backwards. Sorry, I'm not good with this little pointer thing. Oh. So I was on here, but the last two things I really wanted to talk about was implementing policies for accurate revenue projection. That's another thing that really allows me to maximize in our time is I don't allow people to change their contracts once they've signed, so they can't go down. And that allows me to project what I'm going to be making on that weekend or that month or that season. I know some of my colleagues meet first and then they, tweak later. I like to get all that work done on the front end and then I just check in with you 5 weeks out. And that way they don't blow their budget on the photographer and then think they can cut my budget because sometimes they try to do that. And this doesn't mean I don't love spending time with my clients. I do, they're wonderful, but our consultations can last 2 hours, and then it's an hour before, an hour after for prep, and that's a lot of time to take. Another thing we do is really, we vet them properly through our consultation form, which is also our contact form. But I was finding that people were, putting whatever they wanted in the budget range, but now we have a drop down on where they are. So if they hit, we have a $4,000 minimum. So if they choose under $4,000, they automatically get a phone consultation. And that allows me to talk to them a little bit more about their vision. What do they want? What can they fit under $4,000? Do they need setup and tear down? All of that kind of stuff. If they go from 4 to 6 or anything above, they automatically get an in-person consultation. And that's really where my sort of struggle is right now, is that I only have so much time, right? We only have so much time. And so it's really critical to maximize that time with your, with your clients and prospective clients. So to me, it's really the most precious commodity that we have, is doing that. And if you can adapt to change, and you can, shift a little bit, and you start to see a little bit of growth, you've got to free up your time to think at those higher levels. We are so focused. I had a business mentor years ago tell me that small businesses are just prone to, because we're small, focusing on the service, right? Getting the wedding out, designing the bouquet, doing those kinds of things. And we get so much our heads in the sand that if we don't focus on the health of our business, your business won't be here in order to provide that service. So you've got to really kind of pull those support people in. And to me, I think when you invest in yourself and your business, and you begin to build a brand piece by piece that focuses on excellence and perfection, or whatever your brand is, you start elevating all the pieces around you. And you elevate your business, you elevate your employees, taking those necessary steps. And you just have to invest and motivate everybody around you. And ultimately, to me, I think what's great about this room is that we are bringing up our whole industry, right? Whenever our team goes out on site, everybody knows, okay, you better have your stuff together, because and a fair member's coming in, and we have all of our ducks in a row. And so to me, if we can do that and just raise your expectations of yourself, you can just really, your limit is it's limitless. Your potential is limitless, is basically what I'm trying to say. So yeah, I know we're on the tail end of here. So if anybody has any questions, I just hope that you guys take this, and I can't wait to see what everybody does with it. Thanks.